What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Big O, and I'm back again with another vid. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Hope everybody's having a glorious day. As always, go ahead and smash on that like button if you enjoy the content. Definitely subscribe. Make sure you don't miss anything. And today I want to get into sort of part two, kind of the little series I wanted to start on the essentials of turtle keeping. The previous video we talked about the absolute necessities, which were enclosure, filtration, lighting, heating, and basking. And today I want to talk a little bit about things that you can kind of get away with not having, but in order to be as successful a turtle keeper as possible, I would highly recommend having all of these things in your possession, in your repertoire, so to speak. And as usual, we have my female Pacific Coast Mexican musk. Just kind of cruising around. She's doing her thing. And that being said, let's get right into it. Here on the floor, got everything sort of spread out. And I'm going to start right here to the left with the Python water siphon, water changing hose thing, I guess you can call it. It's called the Python. I forget the name brand of it. But anyway, you can find this at pretty much any pet store nowadays and all of the online sources. And it's one of those things that is just going to make your life a lot easier, especially if you have a really large enclosure. This is the part right here that kind of goes into the water. You can gravel vac, you can clean your substrate, whatever it may be, gravel, sand, fluorite, whatever you're using. This piece right here connects to your spigot outside, or you can connect it to your faucet or even your shower if it fits. You can always get an adapter if it doesn't fit. And it's just one of the things I personally can't live without. If you're one of those people that has enough patience to just fill bucket after bucket with water, be my guest. It's a free world, but I would just highly recommend this thing. It makes everything that much easier. Kind of takes the sort of chore aspect out of tank maintenance and water changes and things like that. As we move along, up here I have a few items. We'll start with this bad boy. This is a timer, an electric timer, and I use these for my lighting to provide basically sort of a day and night cycle. If you look close, we have these little tabs here. You can pull them out and place them anywhere on the clock, I guess. And as the timer sort of rotates, these little pegs, or whatever you want to call them, they'll switch the lights on and off. If you look closely in there, that little gray switch on the inside, as this passes by, it'll click it off or click it on, depending on which one it is. I think the green ones turn it on, the red ones turn it off. Also, what I have that's pretty much similar, which I like using more, if you look in here, this is what I'm currently using right now on all of my enclosures. This particular one is made by ZoomEd, and it's sort of a surge protector / power strip with the timer built in. And it's kind of dark in there, you can't really see that well, but on one side you have the outlets that are connected to the timer, and on the other side you have 4 more outlets that are not connected to the timer, and you can switch the timer on and off if you like. These things work great, very convenient, inexpensive, easy to control, and I enjoy using them. They worked out great for me. It's instead of having to manually switch your lights on and off every single day, go ahead and get yourself a couple of these, or maybe even a couple of these, and just automate everything. It takes sort of the guesswork, not really the guesswork, but it's one less thing to worry about, essentially. Here we have the water conditioner that I've currently been using for the last, I'd say, 5 years or so. It's called Prime. It's from Chem, and it really is my favorite out of all the ones I've used. I've only used maybe about 2 or 3 other different ones. Some are turtle specific, are branded specifically for turtles, but this one works great for me, and I also highly recommend it for you. A lot of times, city water, depending on where you live, will have all sorts of things in there. There's chlorine, chloramines, and fluoride for whatever reason. But this is gonna detoxify heavy metals and remove the chlorine and the chloramines out of the water. Just make it a little more safe, more comfortable for your animals. Especially if you're gonna have fish in with your turtles. Fish are a lot more sensitive to the water chemistry, so you definitely want to pick yourself up a container of water conditioner. A container for me this size will last a pretty long time. Just one capful, one very small capful, is enough to treat a 55-gallon tank filled to the top. So just to give you an idea of how long that'll last. Next up, we have some feeding tongs. And if you have an aggressive feeder, like this maniac right here, who's trying to bite through the glass as I'm close to her tank, you want to definitely get yourself one of these. I use this to feed her any chunks of meat that I might feed her. Basically anything that's not a pellet, because she gets a pretty wide variety of things. I give her worms and super worms and little chunks of fish and whole pieces of shrimp, the occasional hopper mouse, frozen thawed of course, and I always use my feeding tongs just to avoid any mishaps, because she's definitely an aggressive feeder, and she'll take anything that is presented to her, including a finger. So next in line we have this basically an algae scrubber. It's just a pad, scrubbing pad connected to this handle. I forget how much I paid for it, but it was pretty cheap. Handles long enough so I can reach almost anywhere in the tank. And just for regular maintenance and cleaning, it works just as well too. It's not just used for algae, but if you're having any algae buildup, you can get it right off with this. I like it a lot more than those magnet algae cleaners, and it's sturdy enough. Doesn't really seem, you'd have to apply really a lot of pressure for it to break or snap. So yeah, whatever sort of algae cleaner you get, just make sure you have one in your toolbox there to make sure your tanks are nice and clean. Next up, we have these. Well, I'll put them against the floor so you can kind of see the contrast. These are just regular old aquarium nets. I got 2 different sizes. This is to assist me with cleaning, and if all my tanks are filled to the top, well, one of them not quite, but still pretty deep. Sometimes the turtles want to try to they see me coming, and they immediately dip to the bottom and try to hide. And so if I don't want to dunk my entire arm in the tank just to try to get them out, I always use these to get them out. Also, I use these for cleaning. I don't know if I mentioned that already. Whenever I do partial water changes, I kind of take out any of the tank decorations, the driftwood and the plants and stuff like that, and I kind of skim through the water with the net, picking up any large particles, any large pieces of debris that might be in there. And whenever I'm doing, say, a full water change, obviously if you have other animals in the tank with your turtles, maybe some sort of crustaceans or snails or other fish or whatever, obviously you can use the net to get them out and put them somewhere else while you continue your cleaning. So they come in very handy. They make things a little more convenient, sometimes a little easier. So it's always good to have them around. They're also pretty cheap, and obviously you can find them anywhere aquarium goods are sold. And then we have this bad boy. It comes in this neat little pouch. And this is an infrared thermometer. I don't keep any of those aquarium thermometers on any of my tanks because, well, they suck. Well, at least all the ones I've tried suck, and I've tried many of them. And all you got to do is this one, you don't have to turn it on, just point the trigger. And as you can see, this tank, at least on the outside, is 74.8 degrees Fahrenheit. Now if we go over the top and point it straight into the water, it's even warmer, 77. Go over here, 75, 70, almost 76 degrees. So as you can see, my tank water is at a perfect temperature, and I don't even have a heater on it. And you know, that's mostly because of where I live and how I live. But you want to make sure that you can monitor all of your water parameters, you know, the chemistry, the temperature, just to make sure that your turtles are going to be doing just fine in your water. And this infrared thermometer is the most convenient and quickest way to check the temps. And you know, you can also obviously check the basking area temps and things like that, so you can regulate it if need be. Definitely very convenient, definitely a good tool to have in your toolbox. Which brings us to the container that all these items are sitting on. This is just a normal plastic sort of tote or container or whatever you want to call it. These things you can pick them up anywhere. You can pick them up at hardware stores, you know, Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart, Target, wherever, pretty much nowadays. And they're fairly inexpensive. They come in all sorts of different sizes. And I would suggest keeping a couple of these around for many reasons. One, you never know what can happen when you have glass aquariums. I've lived through two just horror stories when it came to glass aquariums. The largest aquarium I ever owned, just from one day to the next, it was 125 gallons or 120, I can't remember. The seal just failed, and I came home to water all over the floor. And needless to say, it was a disaster. But I had a couple of these in storage, and you know, there were quite a few turtles in that tank, and I was able to house them all individually until I sort of regrouped. So in that regard, these things can be very important. And also, you can obviously use them for storage. You can use them as a temporary sort of enclosure for when you're doing cleaning or any sort of maintenance. And you can use them to, you know, empty out your tank of all of its decorations and sort of tank furniture, and you can put them in there while you're doing some cleaning. And you know, kind of just use them for whatever you want to use them. But they do come in very handy, and I suggest keeping at least one or two of them around, just in case, because you never know. And last but not least on my list today are buckets. I always keep a few spare buckets around. This one here is 5 gallon. I have another one identical to this in my backyard. This, I don't know how many gallons it is, but it's just a little smaller. I'd imagine it's 3. And this one here is an even smaller one. I always make sure to keep extra buckets around just in case. They come in handy for a variety of purposes. Sometimes whenever I've kept fish in my turtles, I put the fish in a bucket while I'm doing full clean out. I also use it to sort of top off my aquarium sometimes when there's just a bit of water missing due to evaporation. That way I don't have to bring out the python, because it's really not that much water. You just kind of fill up a 5 gallon bucket in the tub and just kind of top off the water. Or sometimes I even put my turtle in one while I'm doing some maintenance, or you know, what have you, whatever you can use it for. They come in very handy. They're very convenient, and they're very cheap. And again, you can find these sorts of plastic buckets pretty much anywhere. So these are just a few of the things that I use personally that I would highly recommend you keep in order to improve your turtle keeping capabilities, I guess you would say. If there's anything anyone thinks I missed, or if there's anything anyone thinks I'm, I guess, lacking in, or if there's anything that you use that's not on this list, go ahead and comment down below and let me know what you're thinking. I always love feedback. I always love knowing what people are thinking when they're watching my videos, and I can always learn another. Trick of the trade, I guess you could say, because there's just so much information out there about these critters, fascinating little animals, and they're a lot more complex than most people think. And you know, I'm always trying to improve my level of care because I love these little guys. And yeah, that being said, we're gonna go ahead and cut this one short. Thanks again for everyone watching, and until the next time, happy reptile keeping. Peace.